All right, so we're live. Guys, it took a little bit of time today. It's been a busy week. I know it's been a busy week for everybody. Region 3 has their big camp at OU, and a lot of things going on, a lot of things in USA Gymnastics. And you know what? I'm just glad we made it to Friday, and we're having a great day. I've got a great guest this afternoon. Usually it's this morning, but today is this afternoon. And, got a great guest, Larry Denham on. He's going to share with us some of the stuff about preschool. It's going to be a real fun time. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to The Right Profile. You coaches that are looking for expert sports psychology for your athletes at a great price. The Right Profile has put together the athlete type. Link is in the show notes. Those guys are experts. Dr. Trautwein's been doing this for, I believe it's over 30 years. And worked with some of the best in the business. Bill Belichick of the Patriots swears by his system and has been using him along with, our good friend Mark Cuban and many, many other professional coaches. So get over there, take a look at it, take the assessment yourself. It's free, and then pass it on to your athletes. So let's get to the guest, Larry. Larry,
Sir.
how are you doing?
Sir. I'm good. I'm doing quite well, actually.
Sitting there on the back porch, enjoying life and having the best of all worlds, huh?
Yeah, well, okay, if you say so.
Well, hey, you sent over this blog, really cool, and we posted it up on 10X Minds. We haven't migrated everything over to Bryan and Bryan yet, but we posted it up on 10X Minds, and it was about teaching preschool, and the main key was, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And, tell us a little bit about that concept.
Well, okay, so first and foremost, the term preschool gymnastics, that's a misnomer because you're not really trying to teach gymnastics to preschoolers. That's just kind of the way we've labeled it. We're doing a preschool thing, and it happens in a gymnastics facility. So we call it preschool gymnastics so people have an idea of what you're doing, but really it's more of discovery adventure. It's about movement discovery, and you have to treat the class like it's an adventure, and you're almost as if you're like equals with them. It's like, we're going on an adventure. Let's go. We're all doing this together, and they really get into it because kids are naturally curious. They want to explore. And so you want to seize upon that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you put together some different skills and things, and we'll get into that in a minute. But one of the big things that caught my attention, and I'm not the best preschool coach, just because I'm a big guy. I got a big booming voice, and kids get really intimidated. Even some adults get really intimidated. So it's just not the best fit for me. But you put in the blog, and it really caught my attention. No warm up. Tell us about that, because that I think many times that we use the warm up period in that as kind of, everyone kind of dawdles into class,
yes,
or whatever. But
sure.
It's kind of a waste of time, is what you put into your blog, and I think that's an excellent point.
Well, I mean, this is really all coming from the mind of my wife, Leanne, who I think is the best preschool teacher in the world. Of course, I'm partial, but I say it objectively too, because I've watched her teach, and it's just amazing how she communicates with the kids. Well, the idea of no warm up, kids, first of all, you warm up. Why? You warm up because you're going to get ready for some really high energy activity, a lot of ballistic, a lot of momentum. A preschool movement education class, you don't have that kind of demand on the body. Kids just barely figure out that they've got body parts they can use. So your preschool class is really more about discovering their own sense of movement. So kids are already flexible and pliable. So there's really not a reason to have a warm-up unless it's just orienting them to the start of the class. But as far as actually doing a structured warm-up, man, that takes time away from what they're there for. They want to jump in that pit. They want to swing on that ring. They want to walk that beam without holding your hand this week. That's what you want kids to do. So the more time you give them in discovery, the better off they are. And warm-up is one of those things. It's just a 5 or 10 minute time waster when it comes to what's best for when you're teaching a proper movement or movement education oriented preschool class.
No, and I couldn't agree with you more, because I know that we've, as a manager and director of the programs and helping, Tim with the recreational, in particular, that's been one of the areas that's been tough, because some of the instructors will use that as their downtime, if you will, and they'll just run that warm up. And
right.
It'll start out with a minute or two, and then it'll get to 5, and then it'll get to 10, and now we're doing a quarter of the class, a third of the class in warm up time. So right. I couldn't agree with you more. Now you also put in the blog some different movements that you guys like to do, and you gave them names. I'm not going to give them away. I'll let you dispel that thunder, but. There were some great movements that were mentioned in the blog, and you gave some references to things that you would do. And one of them was a cowboy movement, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds really cool. I would get into that one." But tell us a little bit about that. How do you structure the class?
Well, okay, so my wife is really good. She has like 40 different themes that she can draw from. She's got just tons and tons of lesson plans to draw from, and everything is progressionary. Okay. So a cowboy roll, to envision what that is, you're on an elevated block and you lay on your back with your head hanging off, and then they grab the back of their knees and they pull their knees over and they do a cowboy roll. Well, that's really a kind of an advanced move when you think about what a preschooler is doing. So before you ever get to that, you're going to be doing the same sort, what we call a pillow roll, where you put your hands behind your head. It looks like you've got a pillow and you roll over that way. The great thing about it is when you throw these names in, it's easier for kids to remember it. When we want to do a log roll, if we say we're going to do a crayon roll, they know exactly what we're talking about, what a crayon looks like when it rolls down a hill. So it's really more for kids' identifiers. And we have a pullover board. It's a board that's got a rope on either side that hangs on a slant so a kid can walk up the wall and kick over a bar, right? Well, it's called a Spider-Man board. And why is it called a Spider-Man board? Because a preschooler called it a Spider-Man board. So it instantly became a Spider-Man board. So a lot of these terms come from the kids themselves. I mean, what they see, well, it looks like a cowboy. Yeah, so it's a cowboy roll. Or because we know a cowboy as being a really wide straddled tuck. That's where that comes from. But it all fits in the progression. And kids want to discover. So when you give them something that they immediately remember, they keep going back to it, and that becomes a target, and they head toward it, and then it becomes, look at my cowboy roll. Then the next thing you know, we're doing stand back tucks.
And you have them on the team, right?
Yeah, well, we let them get a little older.
Well, if we keep on pushing to keep up with the international race, then we may have our preschoolers on the team,
I think there's a place for that, to be honest. But one of the things that I really enjoy about gymnastics versus every other sport is in just about every club, it's 80% recreational, non-competitive. And in every other activity, t-ball, cheerleading, it's 100% competitive. You walk in the door and you're expected to compete with the skill set that you have. Gymnastics is one of the only sports that most of our business is teaching recreational physical education, and gymnastics is just our medium for doing it. But because it is, kids are so much more prepared, not only for gymnastics if they go on, but every other sport if they're going to use what they get from gymnastics, not only in every other sport, but even at a preschool level, you're teaching kids to take risks. You're teaching them that it's okay to set goals and it's okay to fall short as long as you get back up. And you're teaching those things. Those are the things that are going to carry them on when they decide whether to go to college or not, whether to study something simple or something very, very hard. however long they're in gymnastics, they're constantly challenging themselves. So when they get to that point, they're used to challenging themselves. So they quickly attach themselves to the greater challenge.
Right, right. And, you know, speaking of greater challenges, and not to stray away from preschool too much, but, you know, as part of what we do is we here on Bryan and Bryan's, we try to give our guests a little plug for, you know, where they're going to be, their gym, that kind of thing. And you have what I think is probably one of the most intense travel schedules for the summer that I know of. Next to, I guess, no, you and Mark Yancey rival each other in the travel schedule. I would think, because of the number of camps. Tell us a little bit, and tell the audience a little bit about where you're going to be. I know you do a lot of instructing of kids, but you also do a lot of instructing of coaches. You do a lot of instructing of gym owners. You help out a lot of folks. So where are you going to be seen this summer where people can see you and talk to you and interact?
Okay, so starting the week of the 18th, I'll be at Flip Fest up in Crossville, Tennessee. My wife and I do week 4 there. We have for the last 8 or 10 years. And as it turns out, it's our anniversary while we're there every year. So we go to a cheap Mexican restaurant in Crossville, Tennessee for our anniversary. So,
Sweet.
So I have Flip Fest then, and then something that really cool happened to me. Michelle Huffman out in California has begged me to come out and do Woodward West, and I've never been out west before for a camp. So so they're flying me out to California. So I go Flip Fest and Woodward West back to back. Then I'm back home for 4th of July weekend when I have to go do chemo. And we're putting in a new spring floor. Then I leave that weekend and I go down to Myrtle Beach and I coach girls for 2 weeks at Beach Break Camp, Louis Liguri's camp. And then I come back home and do more chemo.
Nice. Now, does that wrap up your summer right there? Is that the
Lost your voice.
Beach? Are you still there?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I lost your voice.
Uh-oh. That's not nice.
Yikes.
We are still there. Hey, Larry, if you can see me, wrap up the show. Just sum it all up.
Thanks for having me on. I hope I gave you guys some interesting insights as to how you relate to a preschooler and how what you do with that child is going to reflect what they're going to do going down the line. Thanks for having me.
All right, Larry. Thanks, buddy.